This video is about Masterpiece the True Dracoslaying King. It is a level 8 light worm monster with 2,900 attack and 2,900 defense. It has no sort of way to stop it from being summoned, unlike most boss monsters that say they can't be special summoned. This thing, you can tribute summon it by using continuous bound trap cards, and becomes unaffected by whatever you use to tribute it. So if you use monster, spell, or trap, it becomes immune to those. And because it takes 2 cards to tribute summon it, it becomes immune to 2/3 of the card pool, effectively. Even though, for it, the spell and monster are usually what you should go for. It also makes it so as a quick effect, once per turn, you can, if this card is tribute summoned, not just when it's tribute summoned, if it's just on the field and has been tribute summoned previously, you can banish 1 continuous spell or trap card in your graveyard, then target 1 card on the field, destroy it. It is quick effect target destruction on a pretty beefy monster that is immune to so much cards. So why is it banned? Well, let's go over some other cards that are very similar to it. We have Crooked Crook, which makes so if you control another cards, it's immune to all card effects. Unlike this card, that's only immune to 2 at a time. You can also dispatch material to destroy as many monsters as you want and it gains attack. That's not really that useful. You can also make it so this card becomes immune to battle if you use the right cards to exceed summon it. Doing so makes it so you have pretty much an unremovable monster. Unless you have, I don't know, kaijus. So why isn't this banned and this is banned? Well, this card has no sort of board presence. If it's on the field, cool. Your opponent can't destroy it. Whoop-de-doo. But Masterpiece can actually do stuff. Quick effects to get rid of your opponent's cards. Technically, you can get rid of your own cards. I don't know why you would do that. Also, Crooked Crook, it's not hard to summon at all. It just takes 2 level 4s. Some of the easiest stuff you can bring out. But unlike what you would think, Masterpiece is pretty easy to summon inside of a True Draco deck, which is what this archetype is a part of. And it's not a part of the Draco Slayers, even though it might sound similar. Dracoslaying, Draco Slayer, different words. So this card's better than this one, entirely because it's so much more consistent to get into, sort of, and it actually has something to do on the field. Let's talk about 5-headed Link Dragon, which is similar. When it's summoned, if it used every single attribute instead of light and dark, not dark. If this card is Link summoned using dark, earth, water, and wind attributes, so everything except light and divine, you can destroy every card your opponent controls. Alright, this card can't be destroyed by battle with previously mentioned attributes. It is unaffected by card effects. But once per turn during your end phase, you must banish 5 cards from your graveyard face down. This card can't. This is optional, and it sends itself to the graveyard if you can't do that. So why is this sounds so much better? Its protection, at least. It makes it so it can't be destroyed by battle. With a 5,000 attack point monster that only takes 5 materials to make. Because it says 5 monsters, even if you had used a Link monster, it can't actually count as multiple materials. So, again, this has the same thing that Crooked Crook had, where you summon it and what do? Let it just stay there on the field and do its best? That's all you really got with this card. Unlike Super Quantum Mech King Great Magnus, which, let's go over this card. It's a little bit insane. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon 3 Super Quantum Mech Beast Xyz monsters with different names from your graveyard. So, if it goes away, you summon more monsters. Yay! This card gains effects depending on the number of materials you have. Before I read those to you, in this card's archetype, there's a field spell that lets you take all your Xyz monsters and just smash them together to make this. Power Rangers. And because of that, each of your Xyz monsters is going to have 1 material on it. And the Xyz monster counts as 1 material on its own, you can make this. with 6 materials, which is for 2 materials, so once per turn, during your main phase, or your opponent's. As a quick effect, you can dispatch 1 material from this card, shuffle 1 card on the field into the deck. Whoa, okay, let me keep reading. If you have 4 or more, it is unaffected by card effects except super quantum cards. Wow. And for 6 materials or more, I don't know why you would have more, but go for it. Your opponent can't add cards from the deck to their hand. So if you somehow manage to make this, you have a 3600 unaffected monster that stops your opponent from adding cards from the deck to the hand, and as a soft once per turn quick effect can spin a card back into your opponent's deck at the cost of a material, which means it won't actually have all of its effects anymore. So if you want to use that, you have to be careful, which is insane. But again, this, unlike the previous two, 5-headed Link Dragon and Crooked Crook, this one actually does something when it's on the field. It has super powerful floodgates. And there is another card that is banned. Let me find it for you. It is a fusion that Thundering Colossus has a very similar effect, which makes so your opponent cannot add cards from their deck to their hand. This card does that, and become unaffected by cards, and able to spin cards back into your opponent's deck. It sounds like 2 banned cards smashed together into 1. Until we think about the deck it's in. The deck it's in is super inconsistent to get it out. With your best starting hand, if your opponent manages to have no form of interaction, you still could not bring this monster out on your first turn. Which, for a boss monster, you really want to be able to bring it out as soon as possible. But it's one of the closest comparisons to this card I can find. Unlike the Winged Dragon of Ra and Immortal Phoenix. Can't be normal summoned set, must be special summoned from its own effect, that is, when Winged Dragon of Ra is sent from the field of the graveyard. You can, while this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon this card. Not you can, it is special summon. It's a mandatory effect. It has a card. Cards and their effects cannot be activated in response to this card's summon, so no trap holes. You pay 1,000 life points, send 1 monster on the field to the graveyard. Non-targeting, non-destruction removal for pretty much nothing. Sounds pretty insane. On a 4,000 attack point monster? Oh, and just in case I forgot to mention, this card is unaffected by other card effects. It does have a downside where once per turn, during the end phase, send this card to the graveyard, and if you do, just summon 1 Winged Dragon of Raw Spear mode from your deck, graveyard, ignoring summon conditions. So you can start cycling through your Winged Dragon of Raws for a monster that is nearly impossible to get rid of. Your opponent cannot kaiju it, because it's probably your turn. If it's during your opponent's turn, they might be able to kaiju it. And it can, as a spell speed 1, get rid of one of your opponent's cards. You can technically get rid of your own, but I don't know why you would do that. I guess you can spin itself back into the deck so it doesn't have to deal with its own downside. And now this one has the same problem that Super Quantum Mech King Great Magnus has. It's super hard to summon. Not nearly as hard as Super Quantum Mech King Great Magnus, but Immortal Phoenix is still really difficult to summon. You need to first have a Winged Dragon of Ra on your field, which on its own is difficult enough, even if you find ways to cheat it out, because there are ways, like exactly Spear mode. I wonder if that was done on purpose. Then, if you found a way to get rid of that card on your field, you could bring this out. If it's during your opponent's turn, it's utterly useless. It's just a 4,000 wall. And it's during either end phase, it goes to the graveyard. So, why isn't this banned then? It's really difficult to remove monster. Sure, it has one downside, but that's it. And it can effortlessly get rid of all of your opponent's monsters. Even if they filled up every single one of their extra monster zones, and their main monster zones, that would be 7. This card, if you paid 7,000 life points, you get rid of all of those. It's not like your opponent can just activate a card and destroy it, because it's immune to everything. But, as I said, it's incredibly difficult to get out. Which, we could say the same thing about this card. It takes 3 level 10 Winged Beast monsters to actually summon it, but that's not how you're summoning it. You're summoning it by using Awakening the Dragon when it's destroyed. This card is unaffected by card effects and is a 3,500 attack point monster. That's it. It's pretty famous for what it is, but it pales in comparison to everything else, mostly. It can do nothing in comparison to this, but it's all of its other effects, new materials. So it's useless when it's actually on the field. Now, I have 2 more monsters I want to mention. The last 2. Apocalypse Tower. This card is so important to Yu-Gi-Oh's history. There is an entire fan-named subtype of monsters, known as towers. Cards that are immune to everything. Like, for example, Masterpiece of True Dracoslaying King. Like, for example, Super Quantum Mech King Great Magnus. Also, for example, Towers itself. Can't be special summoned, requires 3 tributes to make it. Must be with Klee monsters too. Klee is a pendulum deck, meaning you can pendulum summon to get all your monsters you need. Alright. It is when this card is normal summon, it's unaffected by spell and trap cards, and unaffected by any monster effects with original level / rank that is lower than this card level. So its level being 10, so many monsters it's just immune to. It's immune to this, and has a 3,000 body. It makes so all special summoned monsters lose 500 attack and defense. This includes yours and your opponent's, which means your opponent needs to find a way to summon a 3,500 attack point monster to their field. Just be able to destroy this by battle. It also means that once per turn, you can make your opponent send 1 monster from their hand or their side of the field to the graveyard, their choice. Now, if you don't understand why that's more powerful than this card's form removal, let me show you. So, you see I have this. I'll use this one as my example. This is unaffected by card effects, except Super Quantum cards. So, you might be thinking, well, why does that matter? This card, using its effect, is going to get rid of something. But no. There's 2 kinds of removal I'm talking about here. One of them is removing something via a card effect. Another is removing something via making your opponent do an action. Making your opponent commit an action ignores effect immunity. What does this do? You make your opponent blank blank blank. Non-effect removal. You can get cards out of their hand, out of their field. You can do anything you want. And it's unlike Super Quantum Mech King Great Magnus, it's surprisingly easy to summon. But unfortunately, the deck it's in sucks. It's not a good deck at all. And it's immune to most cards, but it's not immune to Link monsters at all, because they do not have a rank or level. So, what Link monster could compare to this? The Arrival Cyber's Agnister. It's a 6. It's a Link 6 that takes 3 or more monsters with different attributes. So, what makes this one special? It's immune to everything, like all my other cards here. I've been talking about. It's a Towers. It gains 1,000 attack for every card used for its summon. If I use 6 monsters to summon it, it's like 6,000 attack point unaffected monster. Think about that. 6,000. And as a spell speed 1, you can target a card on the field, monster on the field, destroy it, and give yourself an Agnister token. It is Cyberburst Dark, level 1, 0/0 attack. To a zone this card points to. It has amazing arrows. The only bad arrow it has is upwards. Directly upwards. But that makes sense. You have to have at least one bad arrow. But why isn't this used often? Like, sure, it's powerful. Nearly irremovable. And it's in the side deck, extra deck, so you don't have to worry about adding it to your hand, unlike these two. Well, it's a summoning requirement. If you can get on the field, great. But you need to find a way to use a lot of monsters to make it. So, if I summon this, and I use 6 monsters, sure, 6,000 attack per monster. Which means I need a monster in my extra monster zone, and all my main monster zones, with different attributes. Which is incredibly difficult to do, if you weren't aware. I can summon it as a 5,000 attack per monster, which is actually surprisingly easy. The Agnister deck can do that first turn, no problem. Then why is this banned when this isn't? They have very similar effects where they can remove your opponent's cards. This one does it during your opponent's turn. This one does it during your turn. This one gives you resources. This one takes away your resources. Sounds like this one should be better in almost every way. And in a vacuum, yes, it's better in every way. But we don't play in a vacuum. From the showing of history, this card dominated meta. This card showed up to a battlefield, stopped play, and your opponent can't really do anything about it because it's immune to almost everything. If it gets destroyed, well, True Draco can effortlessly recycle it. Do I think it should remain banned? Boys, you could not agree with my opinion, and you could yell at me in the comments. Please do. I think bring it back to 1. There's no reason why we can't bring it back to 1. Sure, it's a powerful, unaffected monster, but as I've showed you, there's tons of powerful, unaffected monsters. This is just 4 of them. So, that's my opinion here. Rant about it in the comments. And, why not? You're already down near the comments section. There's a like button a little bit above that. So, might as well click it and change its color.